Her DNA may have come from Sobek, but her likeness has come from Spin Master. Here's a look at the brand new Spin Master PlayStation The Shapes Collection Horizon Forbidden West, Aloy. The main protagonist of Horizon, Aloy is curious, determined, and intent on uncovering the mysteries of the world. Shunned by her own tribe since birth, she has learned to harness her agility, cunning, and deadly aim to hunt the machines and survive the unforgiving wilds. While Aloy tries to unravel the mystery of the world, we seem to have a simpler mystery on our hands. How tall is the figure? The answer to that, according to my tape measure, is 5 inches exactly, or Aloy is going to stand at 12.5 centimeters tall. Thanks to the folks over at Spin Master for providing this sample of the Shapes Collection Horizon Forbidden West Aloy that we could look at in this review. We've already looked at one Horizon Forbidden West that happened to be Varl. Going to bring him in right now. From a size standpoint, like in the game, if I can actually get Varl here to stand, his feet sometimes cause the character to lean a little bit further forward, but he certainly is, though, taller, like in the game, to Aloy. Bringing in of the other figures that we've also looked at now, completing all the Shapes Collection. We looked at not only Kratos, but also his son Atreus from, of course, God of War. And then we also looked at Jin Sakai. I think from so far what we've seen, and this is only, again, the first wave of the Shapes Collection, I think my favorite figures right now have been Jin Sakai, but I think my second or equally favorite to this line might be the Aloy that we're about to have a look at here. Now, if you get a good look at the lay of the land, you'll see that Aloy does come include with quite a lot of things. Some that you may see already is the fact she does come include with the bow and arrow, the spear, the quiver, some swappable hands. But then you may be asking yourself, what's all these things over here? Would you believe that the figure does have 6 swappable faces? Well, you only count 5. Of course, you're going to count the one that's currently on the head as well. That's pretty neat, the fact that Spin Master would then include all these swappable heads. We're going to look at those more in a moment. First, probably the less interesting things, and only just by virtue of the fact that they happen to be hands. The figure does come include with a pair of closed fists. You'll see that one hand is with a glove, one hand is without. The one with the glove goes on this side, the one without goes on this side here. Figure also comes included a pointing hand, and also as well a pulling or drawing back arrow hand. You can probably see for the fact that the way that the fingers are designed like this, that once you get around to using the arrow, you just take the feather and you slot it in between her fingers. Kind of like this. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but you kind of get it like right around there. And you can see she holds the arrow pretty well. You can imagine how much better she can also hold it as well when it's actually attached onto her forearm. We'll come back to that hand in a second. The figure also comes include a couple of gripping hands. Now, right now, she does have relaxed hands on the forearms. That's not going to be helping anybody right now. To fix that quickly, removing the hands are fairly easy to do. Just twist the hand, remove them. Fairly long pegs, but not too long where I had to worry that the pegs were going to break. And do it on this side also as well. And then let's grab the hand for holding the bow and the arrow. So we're going to plug in that hand, one gripping hand. And then we'll go back to that hand we were looking at earlier. That's going to plug in on this side. There we go. We'll just put the figure down here for a second. So the fact that we've kind of prepped things right now for the bow and the arrow, why don't we look at those things next? So she comes with a bow, and the thing that I like is that the bow does have a real drawstring to it. You can see that it's got a really stretchy line. You could easily then pull this back and have her drawing back the arrow. The thing about it, though, you'll see that there's a hole right here. Now, this hole doesn't actually help with the arrow. I think what they probably could have done is added a little peg right here where the bow could have then had the arrow attached to it. And then all you'd really then have to do is just draw back the line like this. But what you do instead is that little hole right here serves a better purpose. That if you look on the back of Aloy's body, right here underneath her hair, there's a peg right here. So what you basically do is you take that hole and then you can attach the bow. So let's just say you don't want to have the character displayed with it. You just attach the bow on the back of her body. Nice little storage space for that. She also does come include with a quiver. Now the quiver not unfortunately having any removable arrows, at least what it does have though is there's a peg there as well. So if you look on the figure's body, on the side here of her skirting, there's also a hole. I had a hard time kind of getting the quiver to stay in place. I actually found it helped to put the quiver kind of on there and twist it around, just to kind of dowel in a bigger hole than what it was. It holds okay. The moment though, I've noticed when you start to kind of turn the figure around, it does bang the quiver quickly, and you'll find it end up falling off the figure. Lastly, she also comes included. I know we've already looked at the fact she comes included with the arrow. The arrow is nicely detailed. I mean, really, like all the accessories. One thing that's been consistent with everything that we looked at from the Shapes collection is the layers and layers and layers of paint applications. That trend continues then as well when we look at the spear. Now, the spear does have some really glorious colors of the gray. You got some golds and yellows added in there as well. Some feathers, some really interesting details going on here. You may notice also, if I get you guys to see that, there's a hole right here too. So would you probably already believe where that's going to be going? Yeah, also on the back of the figure's body. You can't double it up, unfortunately, though, so you have to choose which one you want to use. So let's remove the bow, because we're going to be putting that in her hand in a second. There we go. And then you'll just take yourself the spear, and the spear works the exact same way. So there's a hole right there, and then, of course, that's going to plug onto the peg. I don't know what longevity that peg is going to have. It's a fairly thin piece of plastic, but so far it does the job of holding both the bow and now the spear. If you wanted, though, to get the bow into her hands, the figure only has a single hinge in her elbow, but I don't think it necessarily needed any more than that. Go ahead and take yourself the bow. The hands themselves are also fairly soft plastic, so it's pretty easy for them to hold the weapons. Then, of course, when you've got this, oh, see, I just dropped the quiver. I'm going to have to go and get that later, a little bit later. So we're going to draw back the cord line, and you can kind of get it underneath her fingers. This is always going to be a problem for you. At least it was a problem for me. Just because the cord is so taut, the moment you start to tighten it, it's going to snap out of her fingers. This has happened actually to me a couple of times. Kind of have to just kind of tuck it in between her fingers and her thumb. You might even find it's even easier just to kind of get yourself the arrow first. Slot the arrow in between her grip. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to take the little end stem here and like kind of fit it in between her fingers like that. Then you can kind of draw back the line. This is so much easier, obviously, to do if I don't have the camera rolling right now, but just draw back the line, and you can kind of usually fit that just behind the arrow. I might, in fact, actually have the bow facing the wrong way. Let's just flip this around. It's a test more of patience and persistence, just because a lot of times you're going to, if only they had put a peg right there on the arrow, then at least it could have helped guide that onto the bow. At least then you'd have an easier time of, because you kind of have to get the bow to hold the arrow, and then you also have to have as well, like, so she's got to draw back the line here, and basically it's just an easier thing. It's so much easier to do, obviously, if I don't have this recording right now, but yeah, you're just going to pull back the cord. Well, you know what, we'll kind of get this all prepped and ready to go when we look at the rest of this review, or when we wrap up the remaining of this review. Right now, for at least, we're going to move everything off to the side. The thing that's the kind of the most interesting thing about Aloy is not the fact that she's going to struggle holding the bow and the arrow, but the fact that she does have swappable faces. I'm going to remove right now the spear. I'm going to put it off to the side. First, I did want to show you guys the defaulted head that she has. It looks very much like Aloy in the game. Nice freckles there on the tops of her cheeks. Now, she's looking kind of side-eyed with this face portrait, but I don't think I have any real complaints when it comes to head sculpt. I have complaints really when it comes to like the bow and the arrow, but that just comes more down to the idea that just the line is way too hard to kind of draw back. Again, we're going to fix that. Leave this with me, would it please? I will come back to that for final looks of the figure. But yeah, the head sculpt looks quite good. She's got the braids there on the front. Nice colors of the red and the oranges on the back of her hair as well. There's a lot, again, paint applications that they applied to this. I was also happy to see as well that they managed to put in some posability on the back of her hair. So you can get a little bit of movement there as well. In fact, actually, if you look at her hair, let me just kind of part the drapes here so you guys can see what's going on here. So essentially, like, she's got three sections of rooted hair. Each one of the sections, so this one right here, if I get my finger out of the way, this one over here, and this one onto the top, all are on ball joints. Can you believe that? How many figures can you say have had ball jointed hair? Now for that, because of the way they've designed this, you can bring the hair out. Sometimes, though, when you're doing it, it does pop the head off, or pop the hair off, and you can kind of bring the hair off to the side like this so it looks like it's blowing in the wind. You can also do that, obviously, on the other side as well. You can really do whatever you want, considering the fact that she has posability in her hair. Again, I can't even believe I'm saying that. That's a really interesting touch. I haven't seen any other toy line incorporate articulated hair like this. But like I said, there's a lot of other good stuff going on here. So with the beelining back to the defaulted head sculpt, I would probably just have the figure displayed like this, and I would have been happy with it. Now, the fact that then she also includes 5 other face plates, We're going to go through each of them individually. Some of them are simply just expression faces, so they haven't changed all that much other than just the expression that she's conveying. So this is kind of more of a worrisome, screaming face for Aloy. And changing out the faces, by the way, is just a case of pulling the face from the sides, and you wiggle it basically off. You'll kind of see, that's a little creepy. There's holes right here, and there's, of course, a little peg point at the top. Each one of the individual faces, not to drop this one, does have pegs, and then does have a little smiling face. Hey, look at that. Happy days. But that basically is the thing that's going to fit into her face. So if you want to get like the angrier expression, just kind of line everything up as best you can get it, and that plugs in place. Now, I will admit, while the idea of that, of being able to change the faces, is cool of a concept, it does unfortunately leave a little bit of sightly lines here on the sides where it does look like the face is separate from the rest of the head. You have to really kind of push it in to make sure it's tight as you can get it to the side of the face. But even then, you can kind of see like there's a little line right there. There's really no way around it. In order to get the benefit of having things like this, you have to kind of sacrifice the fact that it won't be as seamless of a look when you have it sculpted to the hair. So she has that expression. I'm going to bring these other heads over here. She also has ones that have face paint. So she's got this one here that has the little white markings there on her cheeks and the top of her forehead. She does also have this one here as well. This one is also a good one too. A little bit more of a worrisome Aloy. And then lastly, Aloy also has this one, which is probably the most elaborate of all the face paints. And again, all of them work the exact same way. Popping that off. Here we go. And let's go back. Maybe we'll go with this one for right now. Again, when you're putting it in there, you want to just kind of make sure you're putting pressure enough to it so it finishes the edges on the sides. That's just such cool looking head sculpt. Now again, while we're keeping the colors going here for the rest of her face, let's then move on to the rest of her body here. The colors that they've used here, again, you've got a lot of layers of like the beiges. You've got some nice reds and added in blues. She's got little pockets there also on the side. Some nice detailing there also on her arms. There really isn't a spot here on Aloy where I feel like something's lacking or missing. You can really see though that they put a lot of effort, they put a lot of time into putting into the work of really painting a piece like this. The figure still doesn't manage to have peg holes on the bottoms of her feet, which is about the only thing I would have said that I really wish that the Shapes collection could have had, just because peg holes would have at least ensured the figure would have had more stability. I did notice though with Aloy, more so with Varl, that they had a harder time to stand. Now, she does at least benefit from toe articulation, but it doesn't really help to aid her with standing. A lot of times you might actually just want to make sure that when you're putting her down, you just lean her back just a little bit. You have to find sort of that sweet spot for Aloy, or really any figures for the Shapes collection for that matter, to stand properly. As for the figure's articulation, going back to Aloy now, if you really were to obviously count the hair, now she's got some additional 3 points of articulation that the other characters couldn't say that they've had. So right away for Aloy, the head is on a ball joint, so it's going to rotate back and forth. It looks up, it looks down, and you can also move it back and forth. In addition to that though, she does also have, oh actually, you know what? She does have ball joints here on the sides of her hair too. So for the head, we got the neck, right? You got the ball joint there. Then you've got a ball joint here. That's 2, that's 3. That's 4, 5, and 6. We haven't even moved down to the rest of the figure's body yet, and already we've got 6 points of articulation. Just crazy the amount of posability that they were able to put into just the figure's hair alone. Of course, the upper body for Aloy is going to be on a ball joint there as well. It is a little looser. I did notice that getting out of the packaging. She does have also a ball joint down below here at her abdomen area too. Shoulders come out, despite the fact that she has these shoulder pads. Let's just get the hair out of the way here. These shoulder pads are actually attached up the top here, so they don't seem to get in the way when it comes to moving the arms about. The arms move forward, yeah, the arms move back, fine and good. She has a swivel here at the bicep. Figure does have only just a single hinge in the elbow, and the arms rotate back and forth. Hands rotate also all the way around. Whether you obviously want to use these hands or a different pair of hands instead. Then the legs split. Now with all the layers that she has here, the skirting on the front, the skirting on the side as well, nothing impedes at all Aloy's movement. You can easily give her the splits in the legs. The legs move forward, the legs move back. There is a swivel there at the top of the thigh. The figure does also possess a double hinge on the knee. I did notice though on one of the knees, I think it's this one here, the lower kneecap, not the one at the top. The top is still tight. The one at the bottom is just starting to develop a little bit of looseness. It's not bad so far though. Ankle pivot up and down, ankle rocker back and forth, and the figure does also have, as already mentioned, toe articulation as well. Like, what do you say really about Aloy? I mean, even if you're not really too familiar with the character or the game Horizon Forbidden West, you got to admit there's a lot of good stuff that went into Aloy. Probably also one of the reasons why this particular figure had completely unique packaging to her. As you saw in the opener of this review, she opened sort of like a book. One side sort of had then the accessories and the other side had Aloy. Same couldn't, though, be said when we looked at her colleague, Horizon Forbidden West, Varl. Varl and really all the other Shapes collection figures have kind of more been relegated to more simpler-looking packaging, but they definitely went all out when it came to Aloy. The fact that the figure, just again, 6 points of articulation before we even started to move down to her torso, 5 even on their own in the hair pieces. I mean, that's crazy. I've never seen that before with a figure. And of course, the fact that now she also has 6 swappable faceplates. You can then choose for yourself exactly how you want to have Aloy displayed on the shelf. Obviously, there are still complications, and the complications more rely on the person behind the camera. I still always have a hard time when it comes to getting characters, not even just Aloy, but any character that has realistic bows and arrows like this. Fitting in one in the hand, like the bow, and then fitting the arrow and then in the other hand is never really an issue. But then when you have to draw back the line, you can already see how tight that gets. You have to kind of, again, you have to spend a lot more time than obviously I was able to spend over the course of this review. I didn't want to spend the next 10-15 minutes trying to get Aloy to hold the proper bow and the arrow. Of course, I will fix that when we get to the final looks of the figure and getting her on the rotisserie. Other than that, though, I mean, there's nothing at all I would have changed to Aloy. She is, now that I've had the chance to kind of spend, well, I mean, when I took her out of the packaging, in between takes, there was probably about an hour and a half that I just had a chance just to kind of get the appreciation for the figure. Now that I can wrap up the review for the Shapes collection, now wrapping up obviously with a more deluxe version of Aloy, I would say probably now she's my favorite. I mean, Jin Sakai for a while, when I was looking at him, I even said in his review that he was my favorite. That might now be beat with just the amount of extra stuff that Spin Master threw into the Shapes collection of Forbidden West Aloy. Yeah, she's definitely my favorite from the first wave here. See, it is possible. Aloy can properly pull back the draw line for the bow, so it looks like she's properly firing off the arrow. I did struggle a little bit, obviously, doing that in the review. It's always the case. When you got the crunch time of the camera filming at the moment, you can never quite figure out. You always feel like you're all thumbs. With the camera also obviously turned off, I spent a little bit more time doing it, and it's not that hard at all. All you do is really pull back the line, and with those 2 kind of fingers that she has to pull back the arrow, just sort of fit the line underneath those fingers, and while it's there, then wedge the tip of the arrow in there, and kind of does a good job of holding all the line in place. It is still tight, but it will hold in place, and it will probably hold like that until I end up changing out the way I've got her displayed. Speaking of the way that she is displayed, there's a lot you can really do with Aloy. The fact that right now I've got the figure displayed with one of the faces, but then she has another 5 to choose from. Not only that, but the figure does also have 5 points of articulation in her hair. You were thinking I was going to say her body. No, just in her hair alone. Some rather interesting new techniques that this toy line has added to this figure that I haven't been seen used with any other figure line. Just think if any other figure company decided to have swappable faceplates and articulated hair, that's a pretty crazy feat for a figure like Aloy. What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comment section. Now, if you haven't also played Horizon Forbidden West, is there enough interesting things about Aloy that you might still be tempted to pick her up, even if you're not familiar on the source material? A big thank you, though, once again to the folks over at Spin Master that did provide the sample of the PlayStation Shapes collection, Horizon Forbidden West Aloy, that we had the chance to have a look in this review. Though I did struggle getting that blasted bow and arrow in there, see, you can do it, though, with a little bit of time and patience in your hands. Obviously, if you guys did enjoy this video, do it a solid. Throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. We may, sad to say, be wrapping up right now the PlayStation Shapes collection, but there will be more videos coming your way for the rest of this week. So as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.